So the show is Gabe and Andy going through the adoption process and dealing with everything that comes with that, and a lot of things in their past that kind of complicate their journey of this process. And without giving anything away, where they get to, I think is a really amazing bit of storytelling and television. Gabriel is who we follow through Lost Boys. He's got a lot of baggage, and that plays a big part in this series in terms of the decisions he has to make and life choices that he has to go through the series, trying to navigate all of that without letting his past get in the way. Gabe's backstory is vast. He lost his mum when he was young, which has a massive effect on him, obviously, and a really detrimental effect on his relationship with his dad, who struggled to be as open as Gabe needed him to be. So they were constantly kind of butting heads and seeing things very differently as Gabe was growing up. I think he hopes that as he's getting older that his relationship with his dad will kind of mend itself, and it doesn't, and he kind of realises that it's something that's going to take a lot of work, and it's whether he feels he can get to that point or not. Gabe's relationship with Andy, I think, is really beautiful. It feels really real. It's flawed. It's full of love. It's fiery. It just feels like a very real relationship. So all those scenes between Gabe and Andy, I think, will hopefully ring true for people in their relationships, because there's real love behind everything they do, even though they clearly frustrate each other at times. Mainly Gabe for Andy. It's a fully inclusive, really open, beautiful, Babylon-y, Moulin Rouge-y, just amazing club where everyone feels like they're welcome. So when he's performing in Neverland, that's his way of expressing himself and dealing with things and processing things. So he does that through song. So to have that alongside all the domestic stuff is actually a really lovely thing to get to do as an actor. We have scenes in Welsh, and that's a very true representation of my life growing up in Cardiff, is that my relationships with people exist in Welsh and English, and in both Welsh and English together, and going in between the two. So it marries that together. For it to be here makes all that feel really genuine. It's going to take people by surprise, because I don't think people will foresee the journey that the characters go on, because it's totally joyous. It's also absolutely heartbreaking. I think it's a real gut punch. But I just think people will root for the characters and will want to go on that journey with them, as troublesome as it can be later on down the line.
Lost Boys and Fairies follows Gabriel and Andy as they go through the adoption process. They're a couple have been together for 8 years and feel as though this is the natural next step in their relationship, is to adopt a child. And the story follows the joys and the trials and difficulties and the experiences of going through that process. Andy is Gabriel's very lovely, very sweet, perhaps a bit more sensible partner. He is an accountant, so lives a lives life a little bit more in the straight and narrow, which very much is in counterpart to Gabriel's excessive, colourful lifestyle. He is, as I said, sensible, pragmatic, responsible, caring, loving, and is very keen to pass on or to use those qualities when thinking about becoming a father. Gabriel and Andy have been together for 8 years. They're not married because Gabriel thinks that that's a heteronormative thing to do. I'd say Andy may have wanted to get married, but there we go. So being together for so long and they're really solid, adopting a child seems like the next logical step. For Andy, I would argue that it's very much something that he really, really would like to do, and has been something that he would like to do for a long, long time. Not having a father figure in his own life, I think he wants to be the type of dad that he never had. And whilst Gabriel, of course, is on board, I do think he's a few stages back from Andy in terms of how ready he is for it. And so the wonderful thing of the story is we get to follow that journey and to follow Gabriel as he catches up a bit with Andy. So we have these sometimes realistic performances, you know, when we actually just cut to Gabriel performing at Neverland, you know, so that's like a realistic, naturalistic thing. But we also have moments in which the musical part of telling the story is this fantasy, imaginative moment, which is great because it means that I get to take part in it sometimes, because Andy is not a performer, he's not a musical person, but he can be in Gabriel's imagination. And we had dancers and drag queens and lots of glitter and sparkle, and it was just amazing. Yeah, when one thinks of people going through adoption, it's another thing that people do in life that is just part of the things that people sometimes do. You know, sometimes they get married, and sometimes they share a car together, and sometimes they get a mortgage, and some people adopt, but we've never really delved into what that feels like and what each person, not only in that couple that are concerned, but the people around them, what they really feel like and the challenges that this thing brings and the joys that it brings. So I think people will really respond to getting a unique insight into the amazing thing that adopting a child is. And apart from that, you know, we've got colour and music and dance and fantasy and everything mixed in between.
Lost Boys and Fairies is a show about a young couple who are looking to adopt a child. So they meet their social worker, and it's all about their lives and their families and how they go on their journey to finding a child to adopt. My character is called Jackie, and she is a social worker. So she comes to meet Andy and Gabe on their very first day, the audience are introduced to them. And she is the lady who's going to take them on their journey towards, you know, finding a child and becoming a family. She's very experienced. She's done this very many times before. So they're in safe hands when they meet Jackie. She really gets very connected with Gabriel and Andy, our two characters on their journey. They are, you know, expressive and creative, and So she gets quite personally involved with them on their journey. Yes, so by the end of the show, she'd made friends and she's part of their, the new family world that they've created, really. The scripts on Lost Boys and Fairies are so much fun. They're really emotional. They're very truthful. Some of the storylines are based around life experiences of our writer, Dav James, so they're really kind of embedded in the truth. But there's also a sort of fantasy element side to one of our characters, Gabriel, so there is actually lots of music and colour and there's lots to explore. What makes the show special and important is because this is an exploration and a drama about the journey of a gay couple, same-sex couple, adopting a child. And there's many same-sex couples who adopt children in the UK, and it might not be something that our audience are aware of. And actually, there's really great success for children who are adopted into same-sex couples, and that's a really exciting thing for the audience to know about, and so it's lovely to be part of that. The show's a must-see if you like an emotional roller coaster, if you like to have a giggle and a cry and a sing-along, then it's a really go-to place for you to be.
We're talking about two young gay men who want to adopt a child, and it's about their journey with that subject, first of all finding the child and then going through the process of adopting this said child. But also with Gabriel, it's about his journey of finding himself and accepting himself and loving himself. Claire in Lost Boys and Fairies is, well, she's Jake's foster mother. She's a little bit mischievous, she's very warm and vocational. She has fostered over 400 children, so this is something that is a calling for her, something that she takes very, very seriously and is her joy. We first meet Claire when she meets Gabriel and Andy, when they have taken an interest in Jake at this, what should we call it, adoption open house, for want of a better word. And she just comes along to inform them of who Jake is and what he's like, and, kind of suss out who these could-be, would-be dads are, basically. And she kind of teases them when she first meets them to just set them a little bit off kilter and see how they handle it, but she thinks they're good people. There's this young man, Jake, is someone that she has grown very, very fond of and would take into her own family if she could. And so if he's going to go off to a family, she needs to know that they are good people and that they are going to look after him, and his interests are going to be paramount to anything. Absolutely loved it. Just thought this is a story that I want to be able to be a part of telling. The fact that it is a story about the rainbow community, that it's about adoption, that it's in part Welsh language, which I think for mainstream BBC is a first, that it's, it's not just done in Welsh, but it's being brought to the nation. And I think that's really important, that people hang on to their roots and their culture and their heritage. So I'm really proud to be a part of this story. I think it'll be a glorious performance because he doesn't come across as a precocious kid. He has that quiet quality about him where you can think something has gone on with this child from before, and what is it? How do we get to the nitty-gritty of that? I'm very proud to see what his work's going to look like. It shows a must-see because there's nothing like it. There's nothing out there like this. There's no story like this being told in this way. And I think for that reason, it needs to be seen. It's a really important message and a really important story that's being told. And people need to know that they are not alone. And so anyone watching this can go, yep, I can see that and I can relate, and I can see my family and I can see my community, or I can learn. Do you know what I mean? It can open my eyes and I can see another part of life that I may not have understood. So I think stories like this are really important to shine the light and dispel some of the ignorance that we have out there.
Lost Boys and Fairies is a show made by Dav James about a gay couple who are thinking about adopting a child. Jake has had a troubled past. He's witty and naughty at some times. His birth parents couldn't take care of him, so then he went into foster care. You meet my character at an adoption day. I can't tell you much, but it's a very funny introduction to the show. I think that when Jake and Gabriel put makeup on together, it makes them closer. But I think Jake and Gabriel have the same personality, but they don't realise it. Claire has turned Jake's life around a lot. And with the birth parents not able to take care of him, it was a tough time for him.
Emrys is in his 70s. I don't think he interacts greatly with other people, particularly with his son, with Gabriel. They were a very, very happy family unit, whilst I think the wife was still alive. There was just the three of them, and they were very, very happy. There was a lot of music, a lot of singing, particularly on family holidays, and then his wife passed away when Gabriel was a young child, and I think that soured him in a sense, and made him become withdrawn. That kind of coloured his Gabriel's attitude towards his father. That he then obviously went off on his own tangent, which was a tangent again that the father couldn't fathom or grasp, and didn't understand at all. She's very, very religious, and devout in a sense. So anything anything out of the ordinary, such as his son and his partner wanting to adopt, isn't part of his world. You know. When I read the script, I didn't realise that the number of hoops that you had to jump through before you're even almost considered for adoption. You know, and I think that element of it is quite interesting and fascinating to people, because, as I say, I don't think people, and I consider myself in this, I don't think people realise, you know, the machinations and the hoops, as I say, the hoops that you had to jump through before you're even considered for, you know. It's a long process, the adoption. It isn't a case of walking in and saying, I'd like to adopt. Oh yes, really? Well, this is what you have to go through, you know. So it's the wonderful thing about the script is that there's this dual language thing going on, you know, which is what we do in Wales. We do actually switch from Welsh to English and vice versa, you know. And it happens in the script, which is wonderful, really. It does give a sort of a credence to the fact that the Welsh language is a living language. You know?
My character name is actually Berwyn, but he does have an alter ego who's Fanny Ample. So Berwyn is a drag queen. He's also the owner and manager of a nightclub in Cardiff called, well, a fictitious nightclub in Cardiff called Neverland, where Fanny Ample, his alter ego, is the maitre d'. But also he's the, I guess he's the manager and best friend of the lead character, Gabriel. In the club, we see him kind of cast an eye, almost like a parental eye over the tribe that frequent the club and its many entertainers, including Gabriel. Berwyn is delighted that they're trying to adopt a child. Very, very supportive, always supportive of Gabriel. Kind of knows that Gabriel needs to go on something of a journey, perhaps, but is in order to become an effective parent, but is so excited about it and so looking forward to being a grandmother. It celebrates queerness. It celebrates gay adoption. It's a very contemporary story that actually there's something very authentic about it. There's something very true and honest about it. It doesn't give us a sugar-coated view of what it means to be queer today, and certainly not a sugar-coated view about on what it means to be a parent today or a gay parent today. It takes us through the challenges and takes us to lifts a lid on the darker side of that life as well, on the kind of more challenging aspects of being gay, of being queer, in this moment in our time. Neverland is a fantastical place. I just so wish this club existed. I'd be there every weekend. It's where Moulin Rouge meets RuPaul's Drag Race. It's the Kit Kat Club with a bit of grunge thrown in. And even though it's a bit garagey, it's still dripping in glitter balls and sequins. So yeah, it's kind of rough around the edges, but yeah, it's the coolest club imaginable. It's a safe and inclusive space for queer people. Queer people of all kind of queer identities in a way. People can feel free and able to enjoy themselves and express themselves however they want to.
As a lot of the stuff that I've written, it's very personally inspired. Me and my husband now, actually, we adopted 2 boys 7 years ago now. And when we went through this process and when they arrived, my world changed forever as a human, but also as an artist, because I went, oh my gosh, this is so, you know, the experience of it changed my life forever. And it also, I felt like I hadn't seen that represented authentically on screen or in theatre even. So it's something I feel really passionate about bringing to the television. So Gabe and Andy, they're very, on the surface, they're very different, I suppose. Gabe is the artist, Andy is the accountant. They're incredibly understanding of each other. They are based a little bit on me and my husband. You know, I think Andy, he's an accountant and he's very stable, he's a rock. Gabriel needs that rock in his life. You know, he talks about the moment when they first kissed in Neverland, the queer club space in Cardiff where they meet. Gabe says about that kiss that he feels like that kiss saved his life, because before he met Andy, let's just say he's got quite a dark past, has been through quite a lot. And in terms of why it's important for me to put this story on screen, it's a queer, bilingual Welsh-English drama about adoption going out on BBC One, which absolutely blows my mind. If somebody would have told me that as a kid, that this kind of representation was going to be in the mainstream in this way, wouldn't have believed it. I think it's so important that we get to see these quite minority perspectives in the mainstream. It's my identity. It's always been my identity as a queer Welsh-speaking man. So to have that language, have those identities on BBC One is a fantastic thing. But also, as you can probably tell, I'm a huge advocate for adoption. It's changed my life completely. And if this story can encourage more people to look into it, I think that would be a brilliant thing as well. I come from a theatrical background, so I'm a playwright. So I've always loved being very playful in the way that I tell my stories, and that you can go, you can be in one space and suddenly you're in this magical realm all of a sudden, and the doubleness that you can do in theatre like that. You can have ghosts in theatre. You can have, you can suddenly, in a play I had before, the protagonist's mother just suddenly appeared out of the cigarette machine dressed in drag. And I've taken all those qualities and I brought it into the TV world. I hope they will maybe get a perspective on something that they didn't know about before. As any drama, what you really want, you want your audience to laugh and cry. It's not for me to say that's what they're going to do. but that is what my hope would be, that they will fall in love with these characters and go on a journey with them, and really care about what happens to them and be entertained and not bored. Because actually, really, that's my job as a storyteller.
My collaboration with the writer, Dav James, has been extraordinary. We've seen eye to eye on almost everything. I think partly I find his tone so unique. It's both moving and funny, profound and shocking. But he tells the world as he sees it. It's very authentic. And it's also, in a way, kind of fantastical. You have these incredible flashbacks throughout the piece, which give it colour and texture and a lot of information about the main character in Lost Boys and Fairies, who's Gabe. I'm a huge fan of musicals, and to find that there were music sequences in Lost Boys and Fairies was a great joy to me. I think, obviously, Dav is extremely musical as a writer, and his background is music in theatre. And so I think the two of us together, working together with songs, how they were done, was a real challenge and a great joy. And seeing Gabe on screen in Neverland and having those quite elaborate performances performed by a drag artist, it was really moving, actually, to see that. It's a joy for me to see for the first time, I think, a narrative about gay adoption. Gay men and women have every right to be parents as anybody else, and they have enormous reservoirs of love to give. And there are thousands of children out there desperately in need of parenting. So to have that message at the heart of Lost Boys and Fairies was, for me as a gay director, a very, very powerful thing to be putting out into the world. Just to see this drag artist and his life as a performer on stage is immensely sort of colourful and larger than life, actually, if I'm honest. So I think that's very, very exciting. And I think just to see the quality of the performances, not least from little Leo as Jake, it's a really wonderful performance and one that he really grew into as, you know, shooting went on.
They're amazing. They're the best scripts I've ever read. So they really sung to me as a gay man. They felt perfect and just said so much in 3 scripts that I had to get on it. And I saw it as a bit of a love letter to Cardiff, but also a chance to show things on BBC One that had never been shown. So Welsh language, it was the first commission from Network with the Welsh language in it, which is amazing. It also tackles some really hard topics within the gay world, which I think is really important at the moment. We've got a really diverse cast in so many different ways, and it's such an inclusive production across the board, both in front and behind the camera, that we are really confident, and everybody who's on board is really on board with what we've done. And I think we've made all the right choices for this project. Having Wales and Cardiff represented as Cardiff, lots of shows get filmed down in Wales that aren't set here. They're either set in space or imaginary places or London or wherever else, and actually seeing Cardiff for Cardiff is really important, particularly for representation across a primetime channel. You can be in the Brecons in one direction and Ogmore in the other, getting a real sense of different parts of the city, but also seeing Cardiff for Cardiff on screen. It's just lovely to see Bute Street and parts of Victoria Park and places that don't often get shown on screen, and it's a real, as I've said before, it's a sort of a love letter to Cardiff. I think what will excite audiences is the Neverland. It's a real spectacle. It's a real joy to watch. And when we were filming it, just everyone was buzzing just because it looked amazing on camera. The performances and the essays, because we used so many people from the queer community in Cardiff and South Wales, so having them on screen and represented, and people will see all their friends and stuff like that. I think that will be really special. It's really important that we cover some of the darker sides of the gay world that people are going through at the moment that aren't being talked about on a wider platform, and it might help people seek help for what they're going through. We've got something that is a really important emotional story with characters that really sing to so many different hearts and different like tears, laughter, joy. It's all there. So I think it's just such a lovely production to be on, and it was really important for me.